Chapter 12. Brain Reflections. The three biggest thrills of my life and career were my debut match against Prince Pullins, managing Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, and wrestling at Comiskey Park in Chicago during the 80s. I teamed with the original Sheik and we wrestled Bruiser and Bobo Brazil. I remember saying in the ring that night at Comiskey I used to carry all their jackets. Sheik would give me $5 to wash his car. Bruiser used to give me $5 to wrestle for the year. And Bobo would have given me $50 if I would have asked him. It's hard to pick a favorite wrestler whom I managed, but the ones I had the most fun with were Blackjack Lanza and Baron von Raschke. I was in my 20s then, and everything was new to me. My idols in this business were always Buddy Rogers and Ray Stevens. I got to know Rogers and wrestle him in 1968. I managed, teamed, and wrestled Ray. Today, managers are few and far between. Years ago, a lot of guys couldn't talk, that's why they had managers. Like Bob Orton Jr., who is a great athlete but stutters. Some guys couldn't come up with anything to say, so it was good for them to have a manager. Vern Gagne put me with Nick Bockwinkel, but Nick didn't need me because he could talk. I was a way to save the matches and add more possibilities to the finish. If Nick would have come out with Jimmy Hart yelling through his megaphone, I don't think that would have worked because they wouldn't look like they belonged together. The reason that promotions like the WWF don't have managers anymore is that no one knows how to manage. They think that they can go out there and yell and scream and say, "Tonight, he's going down." Like no one has ever used that before. No one knows how to develop their character. Wrestlers used to be able to develop a character, even changing their own nationality. Shigadon Al-Casey was a wrestler from Oklahoma State University and a native Iraqi. He wrestled for years as Billy White Wolf, an Indian. Another Indian named White Owl, out of Detroit, was actually black. When I was in Japan, Carlos Colon worked as an Indian, and he's Puerto Rican. Little Beaver wrestled as an Indian, and he was French-Canadian. Chief Jay Strongbow's real name is Joe Scarpa, and he's Italian. I always said I was from Beverly Hills. I never said Los Angeles or Hollywood because if you ever go to those places, there's a lot of garbage. Beverly Hills is where the money is. I got my character established. I yelled and screamed when the time was right. If someone yells and screams all the time, then when the time is actually right, there's nothing to yell and scream about. Managers can't get over because no one can get over anymore. It's all been done. There is no emphasis put on a manager. If it wasn't for a manager, the business would have been dead. There wouldn't have been finishes. The wrestlers would always have to beat each other or get disqualified. That's the only thing you could do. With a manager, you have three guys involved and different possibilities for finishes. Every manager wants to wear sunglasses. But when they wear sunglasses, no one can see their eyes or expressions. Everybody wants to have a beard and long hair. But then they look like the guy who takes tickets. No one knows how to beg off. No one knows how to sneak. You never do anything where the referee catches you because the referee doesn't draw you a dime. No one says, "Get the kids, Helen, we're going down to the auditorium. Freddie is refereeing tonight." Besides, the promotions like the WWF feel that there is no need for managers anyway. Vince McMahon used to have a dress code. I don't know if he has one now. But WCW never did. I remember when I was a kid, I'd watch a guy and I'd look at his feet for nice shoes and his hands for nice jewelry. Fans needed to see guys like Buddy Rogers and Ric Flair wearing nice suits and think, God, I want to be one of those guys because they make money. If you look professional, you usually are, or close to it. Today, wrestlers walk around wearing jeans with the ass ripped out or Zubaz and a shirt that says Gold's Gym. They're the world champion dragging the belt around. They forget that wrestlers are perceived by a lot of people as buffoons and garbage, and now they've confirmed this perception. It's all in how they present themselves. I never liked a guy carrying a belt over his shoulder or dragging it. I used to tell guys, if you win a Super Bowl ring, you don't take it out of your pocket and show it. You wear it. And you look better standing out there with the belt around your waist. It frees up your hands to talk. I used to tell the guys who wore the fanny packs, "You want to meet some women tonight?" They'd say, "Yeah." Well, you're not going to do it that way. Put that inside your pants. Today, the wrestlers run to the ring and take the belt or their jacket off before they get to the ring. What those dummies don't know is that they might not be on camera. Stay in the ring until the bell rings, and then take your stuff off. Why wear a beautiful robe to the ring when no one sees you? To keep warm? You open up your robe. The match starts. Whoa, you say. You take the belt off, fold it, and give it to the timekeeper. Then there's always some goon ready to take your robe back to the ring. Wait a minute, you say. You fold that robe carefully because you want people to believe that you paid $100,000 for it. Flair spent $10,000 to $20,000 at least on his robes. Then, you look like a pro. And you have to live the part 24 hours a day. Monsoon used to have a jacket he'd wear on the way to the ring. He'd carefully take it off, fold it real nice, put it down on the mat, and kick it. Wrestling got over so well because of the Dumont Network, which is now ABC. Wrestling had an audience, crowd, and lights. All they had to do was bring in one camera. That's why it got over. Gorgeous George, first real wrestling star, was an accident. Another guy was going to be Gorgeous George, but he broke his leg, so they made George Wagner Gorgeous George in Los Angeles. Something's wrong, though. Baseball players and athletes don't get any TV residuals because it's a sports show. You only get residuals when you have a written or scripted show. Wrestling is just that. We never got one dime, not one residual. For some reason, the Actors Union doesn't care about us and has never delved into it. My God, we've been on TV longer than Gunsmoke or anything, and we should have gotten something. We never did. It's because there is no union. Anytime a wrestler would talk about putting together a wrestling union, a promoter would blackball him. They didn't want you to start doing that. If you were making $5,000 a week for one guy and you didn't like it, you could try to make $5,000 somewhere else. But the promoters made it so you couldn't just pick up and move. You had an apartment and a lease. They had you. I even knew of a tag team where each member had 1-year contracts, but those were negotiated 6 months apart. One always needed the other. I saw Luthez go to a 1-hour Broadway, which is the wrestling term for a time-limit draw with a broken ankle wrestling the bruiser. Today, a guy would take off 8 years to recover. In those days, you just got in the car and continued to the next town to work. If you didn't have a job. I have worked with a groin pull, broken collarbone, and sprained ankle, which is worse than a break. I used to get a bucket of boiling water and a bucket of ice water. I'd put my ankle in the ice until I couldn't take it anymore. Then I'd put it in the hot water. I did that for an hour twice a day so I could get the circulation going and at least walk. I've never experienced winning or losing in my life at a major level. I won and lost at Little League, but that was it. I never went to the NCAA championship. I never went for that putt for $100,000. I never went for a World Series ring. And I never went to high school, so I never played on a team. I don't know the agony of defeat. I've never been defeated. I know the agony of a bad paycheck, and I know the good feeling of getting more money than I thought I would, which didn't happen that often. I was out there to entertain. There are Shakespearean actors like Laurence Olivier, comic actors like Robin Williams, and athletic actors, which is what I was. Nothing less. Nothing more. There are some wrestlers like Verne Gagne, who was a very tough man, good wrestler, and great shooter. But there is no shooting that draws you money in professional wrestling. If there was, he would have been in it and would have won it all. But he would have never met me. I have a wonderful education just from traveling and being around people who are bright. A lot of people think wrestlers aren't smart enough to put their underwear on the right way. They have to have a code yellow in front, brown in back. Johnny Case was superintendent of Antioch schools. Angelo Poffo was a graduate of DePaul. Ken Patera was an Olympian who went to Brigham Young. Verne Gagne and Jim Brunzell went to the University of Minnesota. Baron von Raschke went to the University of Nebraska and taught. And Blackjack Lanza was a sociology teacher. They are educated people, not a bunch of buffoons and morons, even if they dressed and looked like it. And they're good-hearted people with families. Sure, they're off-the-wall people. But we never had that in the Congress or Senate, now did we? You know how women know that sex is over with Ted Kennedy? When the dome light goes on. You know why he wears wool underwear. To keep his ankles warm. You get my point. To be a macho man, you don't slap a woman around and wear 12 chains. A true man is a guy that does the best he can to feed his family and not infringe on anyone's privacy. That's a good man to me. But it doesn't hurt to marry a woman who has a lotto ticket and a can of whipped cream and owns a liquor store. Some people are very bitter about the business and the way it is run right now. Things change. You adapt or get out. You think about the times you had, the money you made, and the fun you had. If you think about everything negative, your whole life will be negative, and that's the way you will be. They say it was better in the good old days. No, it wasn't. They make more money now these days than we did in the old days. It was more fun in those days because it was easier. I could sit in an arm lock for a half hour with Bruno Sammartino. Now wrestlers go through tables or fly off a scaffold. It's not wrestling anymore. It's sports entertainment. A lot of guys go out there and take those bumps off the top of a cage or a building because they can't work. That's the truth. If they could work, they wouldn't have to do that. Falling off a cage wouldn't hurt me. My trunks would be so full of shit halfway down, I'd land in a nice, big, soft spot. It's a different crowd now watching wrestling, and it affects how the wrestlers perform. Now guys get nervous if they miss a spot because they have their whole match laid out. They will go back to the beginning and start their match over again. When I started, we'd ask, "What do you want to do tonight?" "Oh, let's work the arm or work the leg." You never wanted to do what the other guy did. We were always taught not to use another guy's finisher or use that move for a high spot. There are no places left for a guy to hone his craft. In the old days, there were full-time territories. George Shire in San Francisco, Gene LaBelle in Los Angeles, Stu Hart in Calgary, Gene Kiniski in Vancouver, Joe Dusk in Omaha, Fritz von Erich in Dallas, Joe Blanchard in San Antonio, the Funks in Amarillo, and Paul Bosch in Houston. Vern Gagne had Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, Denver, San Francisco, Winnipeg, and Ottawa. Dick the Bruiser had Indianapolis. Nick Eulis had Tennessee, and the Jarretts had Tennessee, Alabama, and Kentucky. Bill Watts had Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. The Sheik had Michigan and Ohio. Vince McMahon Sr. ran from Bangor, Maine, to Charlotte, North Carolina. Frank Tunney was in Toronto. Johnny Rojo promoted Montreal. Emile Dupree had Halifax in the summer. Eddie Graham had Florida. The Crockett's had Charlotte. Ray and Ann Gunkel and Jim Barnett had Atlanta. Now you have Stamford, Connecticut, and the WWF. That's it. Promotions won't make it now because there is no TV outside of the WWE. They'll just get local guys, put paint and funny little outfits on them, and pay them $50. The stars want guaranteed money, first-class travel, everything paid, and they want to go over. But they shouldn't. I never wanted to go over. You have to pick someone up. A guy once asked me if wrestling was fake. I said, I used to think so. But if it was, wouldn't they let me win at least once? I beat Kenny J. Then again, he beat me too. He said in the locker room after that match, "Do I have to go another 20 years now?" With my gimmick, I worked with Bruiser and Crusher in tag matches. I could work single matches only coming off an angle, not going after a title. A guy like Buck Zumhofe was perfect for me because of his size and that radio. 1, 2, 3 Kid would have been perfect for me. I wish I had a Rey Mysterio or Eddie Guerrero. What I could have done with them. But I never was a full-time wrestler. I never went into a territory as a wrestler. In Indiana, I started as a manager. Same as St. Louis and Minneapolis and the other territories. I wrestled in specialty bouts, including midget matches. Bruiser and Little Bruiser against Blackjack Lanza and me. Or sometimes it was a 6-man with Bruiser, Crusher, and Little Bruiser. It was funny. If we were in Indiana, the midget was Little Bruiser. If we were in Milwaukee, we'd call him Little Crusher. There's an old wrestling joke that I tell and hear from time to time. It sums up the business as I know it. There was a guy who went to the promoter and wanted to be a wrestler. The promoter said, "You don't look tough enough, kid." The kid said, "But I want to be a wrestler." "Go clean my office," said the promoter. The kid cleaned his office. The promoter took the kid down to the gym and stretched the kid. "He won't be back," the promoter boasted. The kid came back the next day. The promoter asked him, "What do you want?" "I want to be a wrestler." "Go wash and wax my car," ordered the promoter. The kid washed and waxed his car. The promoter took him down to the gym and stretched him. "Give me a hand job," said the promoter. The kid gave him a hand job and left. The promoter was sure he wouldn't come back the next day. The kid came back. "I want to be a wrestler," he claimed. The promoter said, "Wash all the windows in my office." The kid did it and the promoter took him down to the gym again and stretched him. "Give me a blow job," the promoter ordered. The kid said, "I don't want to be a babyface." This is the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed this program. Please like and subscribe. Comments help the algorithm. See you next time.